Hi everyone, this is a kind of wrap up or round out for Q2 Historathon 2025. It's mainly about this book here, but it also includes some numismatics or some coins, a little kind of mini micro show and tell of some contemporary coins, and a link with a couple of other books, well, at least one other book. So, whoa! Beggar. It's not supposed to do that. Yeah. So, it's called Medieval Market Morality, Life, Law and Ethics in the English Marketplace, 1200 to 1500 by James Davis. It began life, curious enough, as a PhD at Jesus College at Cambridge University. It's published in book form 2012. And to sort of kind of talk about it a little bit, I'm going to talk about it mainly. I'm going to be talking about this book here. Yeah, it is a pretty remarkable book. And one of the things I will take away from it is the whole sense of the marketplace in the Middle Ages, at least in England, if not elsewhere in Western Europe. That is either perhaps a bit of a kind of a blank slate, as it were, or perhaps a kind of a bit of a hole in the ground full of various assumptions, possibly stereotypes that have arrived from this period of time as well, which this book does talk about. So, to begin, Adam Smith said that human society has an innate propensity to truck, barter and exchange one thing for another. Polanyi and Muldrew both said, according to Davis, that medieval markets were embedded in cultural and social controls, and thus not self-regulating and driven by maximizing self-interest. So this last thereby naturally begs the question to what extent this might have been the case. And Davis continues, the interaction between morals, culture, economic rationale, laws, and commercial development is undoubtedly complex. But might there have been an ethical consensus during this period of time? Could there ever truly be one? And if there was, up to and including our own time, how might such a thing emerge and be sustained? Davis makes the point that any ethical consensus was not just formed in the considered writings of moralists, preachers, and poets, but also in the practices, rituals, and actions of everyday society. So first of all, it seems that church doctrines and beliefs permeated everyone's lives in the Middle Ages. This is entirely... he can't write that book without following on from that thought, pretty much. The church perhaps became more flexible as commercial practices developed from the 13th century onwards, particularly since, as landholders, they were intricately linked to the developing market practices. However, it also had a strict set of ethics that was promulgated across the marketplace. At the same time, there were also ethical and practical pressures for close regulation. Assumptions of corruption underlaid the laws. Gurevich talked about a transmission of popular culture to the intellectual level, and he cites this book. Yeah, that one. And this pretty dreadful looking front cover is this little guy here is basically really ill, possibly dying, but these guys, it's like they're sort of the devils possessing him, and that's the reason why he's so ill. So, this is Gurevich, Medieval Popular Culture, Problems of Belief and Perception. Yeah. So, he refers to that. And Gurevich is a Soviet guy. And Davis also mentioned that people do make ethical decisions within the market. Since there was an increasing marketplace of economic activity and increasing literacy during the Middle Ages, there was also an increase in representations and expressions of opinion about market values, about money, and about avarice, and the workaday life of the merchant, large and small. As you might expect, stereotypes often feature in texts. In ecclesiastical and moralizing texts and sermons, it is understood they were not trying to represent reality, but were taking an opportunity to represent ideals of behavior. Through the use of rhetorical device, they were highlighting areas of concern. The growing mendicant movement added two things. Mystery and morality plays were popular in 15th century England. Complaint poems are saturated with references to civil law, political events, and everyday activities, and the audience was widening and deepening. Contrariwise, suspicions and bias and prejudice of certain market mechanisms are also in evidence during the period. Crucially, Davis continues, although parishioners were confronted with church doctrines on a regular basis and probably accepted many of the basic principles, we cannot know how they actually interpreted the details. But one preacher suggested that the laity viewed the world through practical eyes. So, hopefully that will provide some kind of decent, maybe even major idea of this whole area of life during this particular period of time. There is reference to theory and various schools of thought, and there is a full range of source material such as has survived down to our own day and age. One of the bonus values, evidently, of Historathon is the likely opportunity of comparing and relating this kind of book with other reading of the same period of time. And, well, for this video, one for the road, which I suppose we ought not to be saying, to be sure, is that Q2 ain't over yet. So where there's time, there's life, as they say. And, yeah, I'm also I did start reading this as I sort of hoped I'd have time to do. Yeah. This is St. Edmund being discovered in a thicket, probably in Suffolk somewhere, modern day Suffolk anyway, today. So yeah, I started reading this, and it is really pretty good. I think I might have to read the rest of it. But unfortunately, there's also that one with my pile of. Well, I don't have a pile. I have a sort of a pile of hopeful possibilities, really. At the beginning of each Q2, and this is one of them. And I have read a little bit of it, about 20 pages or something, and it is very good. But I don't think I'll have time to read it all, so that'll be kind of next year, I guess. But still, pretty good book. Monastic and Religious Orders in Britain, 1000 to 1300, by Janet Burton. Proper academic. So there's those two. Also, with respect to Q3, I will be tempted to continue my reading of Anne Somerset's Elizabeth, but I haven't really even thought about it beyond that, given the whole present focus on Q2. But to round out my reading of Medieval Market Morality, I'd like to show a couple of coins which are contemporary to the early period here. And the lighting won't be right, but I will hopefully try and make some. That is a real medieval coin. It's yeah, it shows a stylized image of kingship typical for the period. It's hopefully, if I work it out properly, from the first period, first phase, I think they call it, for Edward I. So that will be 1270s. But I have an earlier coin. Yeah. If you're familiar with them, on the reverse, I'll try and show this. There's like a line down the middle, and then another one across. And if they wanted a different denomination, there weren't any other denominations. That was it, just that. And if they wanted a smaller denomination, they cut the ruddy thing in half. That was it. That was as far advanced as things were at that particular period of time, at least in England. Things are going to make their way forward by the time of Edward III and the 1330s, 1340s, and thereafter, with a few gold and several silver denominations, including a groat. But back in the middle 1300s, that was it. A penny, and that's your halfpenny. And I think they might have even cut the halfpenny in half to get a quarter penny or farthing. And yeah, the what should appear on the screen anyway will be for the halfpenny. The Henry III halfpenny will be again a sort of a stylized image of kingship that seems to sort of kind of move forward somewhat by the time of Edward I. But nonetheless, it's evidently discernible. And on the reverse, fairly typically, around the edge of it, the so-called legend, and there will be probably the money and probably something like London Civitas, and then these various pellets in these various quarters. So that's my little show and tell of some old stuff, some old things, as they used to call them in Henry III's time. Yeah. So, they do seem to, in a way, shine some kind of light on where things were. Therefore, in the marketplace of England during this period of time. I mean, it's we get colour illustrations and colour paintings and pictures and all sorts of words and texts about the thing, but that kind of sort of, in a way, perhaps seemingly provides some kind of frame of reference as to where things were at that time. So yeah, that's my kind of little round out. I don't know whether I'll have time for another video for Q2, depending on how I get on with those other books mentioned. But yeah, happy reading, and well, bye for now.